Continuing with episode 10, Lambda is seen dispatching several numbers to aid the Shadow Garden operation in the Kingdom of Oriana. They use a traditional inn as a simple gathering point. Upon Lambda's arrival, he encounters Omega and Kai. Lambda immediately inquires about the condition of 666 or Rose Oriana. According to rumors, Rose is sided with the enemy of her own accord. However, Omega thinks it's an exaggeration to label Rose's actions as betrayal. Nevertheless, Lambda believes that Rose has put her comrades in danger, even if she acted alone. As someone who educated her as a number, Lambda feels like a failure and wishes for Rose to be pitied. Instead, Lambda feels deserving of punishment for failing to guide Rose. Omega and Kai find this idea impossible, especially since the issue with Rose is beyond the reach of the Seven Shadows. Lambda is surprised to hear this. If the Seven Shadows can no longer act, it means Shadow itself has intervened, rendering them powerless. Meanwhile, Sid has now reached the capital. Originally, he wanted to fly directly to the palace. However, because it's already noon, he would surely attract attention. Coincidentally, Sid meets Epsilon. With this encounter, Sid hitches a ride to enter the palace. As a renowned pianist, Epsilon enjoys exceptional privileges. In the Kingdom of Oriana, if your art is recognized, you will be respected regardless of race or status. To facilitate Sid's entry, he is asked to pretend to be Epsilon's student. Even though Sid is actually Epsilon's mentor, they are forced to play this role for now. Epsilon uses the name Chiron when outside the Shadow Garden. By the way, as usual, Epsilon modifies her body shape with slime. Of course, Sid is well aware of this. Suddenly, Dome greets Epsilon. He asks if Chiron will perform at today's lunch party. Chiron replies that he will perform his new piece. Epsilon hopes his music will entertain Princess Rose, who is saddened by the loss of her father. Dome then informs them that Rose is unwell and cannot attend at the moment. Later, noticing an unfamiliar young man beside Epsilon, Dome inquires about him. Epsilon answers that he is Chiron's only student. Despite Sid being introduced as Chiron's student, Dome still questions his entry permission. Initially, Sid is allowed to enter as he is Epsilon's acquaintance. However, Dome states there has been a change in the arrangement. If that's the case, Epsilon decides to leave. Dome then declares he will make an exception if Epsilon's student plays one piece of music. Sid didn't reject the proposal and quickly prepared to play the piano. The visitors seemed to look down on Sid, thinking that Chiron was too outstanding as a pianist and his student wouldn't be able to match him. While sitting at the piano bench, Sid noticed many visitors adorned with excessive gold ornaments. Despite the people facing difficulties, the nobles were immersed in luxury. Afterward, Sid began playing the piano. His performance left the visitors utterly impressed. Even Epsilon herself was delighted watching Sid play. At the same time, Sid discreetly took the excessive ornaments worn by the nobles using his slime. He even took a ring from Dome's pocket, assuming it was just a regular piece of jewelry. During a break in a room, Sid expressed his desire to explore the palace. For some reason, the maid serving them, Margaret, suddenly offered to accompany Sid. Margaret insisted on accompanying Sid, seemingly captivated by him after seeing his performance. Epsilon appeared panicked as Margaret attempted to seduce Sid with her natural form, unlike Epsilon's slime-formed body. In the end, Sid had to resign himself to being accompanied by Margaret, who praised his piano performance. Margaret had heard that Count Patron had offered Sid a position, stating that if he joined the family as a pianist, he would receive an annual salary of 100 million zeni. Not only Count Patron, but Marcus Nerican also showed interest in Sid. According to Margaret, the salary at Marcus Nerican's place was slightly lower, but he had many connections. If seeking fame, then Marcus Nerican was the choice. Sid suddenly became quite interested in the future path as a pianist. With an annual salary system, he wouldn't have to worry. Despite Margaret listing all these advantages, she strongly recommended Sid to join her family. The annual salary would start at 50 million, but Margaret claimed she would persuade her family's leader to pay Sid 70 million zeni. Margaret stated that both Count Patron and Marcus Narican had feelings for her, so Cid didn't need to worry about the two of them. In the midst of the conversation, Cid wanted to accomplish his main objective for coming here. He wanted to confirm whether Margaret was indeed Princess Rose's maid. If true, Cid wanted to know where Princess Rose was. Openly, Margaret admitted that she despised Princess Rose. Margaret had been serving her since before Rose attended the Magyar Kingdom school. Although Rose had an interest in swordsmanship like a barbarian, people still liked her. However, due to Rose killing the king, she threw the kingdom into chaos. Actually, Margaret wasn't supposed to reveal Rose's current location, but because Cid was the one asking, she disclosed that Rose was on the upper floor of the tower in the west. After that, Cid secretly wanted to escape from Margaret. While doing so, he encountered a fat and ugly man. It seemed like the fat man was a palace guard. The fat man was angry because Cid was alone with Margaret. He claimed that Margaret and he were in love and no intruders were allowed. Cid immediately felt something was off when the fat man said that. Indeed, in reality, that wasn't the case. When Margaret was in this flower garden, the fat man often came to see her. When the fat man saw Margaret, he quickly turned his face away. The fat man assumed Margaret felt embarrassed and ran away. However, what actually happened was Margaret running away because she was disgusted by the fat man. Just because of that, the fat man believed they were in love, a feeling conveyed only through eye contact. While the fat man was lost in his own fantasies, Cid quietly tried to escape again. In a room, Rose appears restless. She is feeling this way because her mother had asked for her help. However, she is confident that Shadow Garden will take action. She understands that traitors will receive appropriate treatment. Additionally, the Diabolos Church has already started moving. Outside the room, some members of the Diabolos Church stand guard to prevent Rose from leaving. Soon, this kingdom will become the battleground between two organizations. Suddenly, Rose sees someone climbing onto the balcony in front of her room. Surprisingly, it's Cid. Rose immediately hugs him, expressing how much she missed him. To be safer, they enter the room first. Cid then explains that he could come here by disguising himself as the student of a pianist acquaintance. Clearly, Cid came to talk about Rose's marriage. Cid is sure that Rose doesn't actually want to marry Doom, because in the past, Rose mentioned that she would become a queen. However, Rose asked him to forget everything about her. Cid is not willing to do that. He feels that Rose is similar to him. Rose boldly became a swordswoman in a land that belittles swords. She was rejected and misunderstood by people. Cid has also felt the same way. He has dreams that others cannot understand. Just like Cid, Rose continues to believe in her path even if others don't acknowledge it. However, the current Rose has deviated from that path. Previously, Rose proved her determination by stabbing her fiancé and killing her father. Cid is convinced that Rose made those choices to continue her life's journey. However, now she is going to marry the man she once stabbed. It has deviated from her life's path. Even though Cid has said so, Rose still wants him to forget everything about her. In the late afternoon, Dome entered Rose's room upon hearing voices. With a stern expression, Rose replied that there was no one else here. Dome scolded Rose to mind her words and reminded her that Queen Riena's life depended on Rose's behavior. Rose couldn't do anything about it. It turns out that Cid had been hiding on the balcony all this time. He finally understood why Rose insisted on obeying Dome. In such a case, he felt he had to proceed with Plan B. Cid also remembered stealing a ring from Dome. He suspected it might be their wedding ring. Although Cid felt guilty for taking it, he decided to keep the ring. Meanwhile, Epsilon and 559 were discussing the issue of Rose Oriana. Epsilon informed them that Shadow had made contact with Rose, but no punishment was given. Whatever Shadow's plan was, Epsilon felt incapable of understanding their thoughts. However, their biggest problem now was the ring obtained from Fort Seisho. According to legend, the ring could annihilate 10,000 soldiers in one night. This power was referred to as the Black Rose. On the other hand, Dome was reporting his current situation to his superior in the Diabolos Church, Mordred. They were working together to obtain the power of the Black Rose to ensure his authority in the church remained unshaken. Mordred even promised to prepare a seat at the round table for Dome. Mordred urged Doan not to be lax against any infiltrators. Doan reassured him, mentioning that he always kept the ring close to him. Unbeknownst to him, the ring had actually been stolen.